Welcome everyone to our Egyptian Sacred Magical Tour. I am joined by the galactic goddess Eleanor Lydia Bain. We have 14 people assembled on a Nile River boat. Cue all the cool videos that we've done. We're going to have people come one by one, sharing their experiences, asking questions about the different temples that they've been in. Eleanor, I want to start with you. Why don't you share one of your experiences?
Okay, so today was the highlight of the trip for me. It was a very, very special experience that we had. And I know that all of us here are a very select group who have come not only to see Egypt as it's presented to us in the history books, but how it's been presented in our heart, and here with the Galactic Historian to understand a deeper perspective on these temples, past, present, and future. So I'd like to go into a very special experience today that happened in the Temple of Sekhmet. We were very, very blessed to get access. Normally there is no access into that room, so we were very, very blessed. I'm sure everybody noticed that the temperature raised. As soon as we got into this temple, it became very, very warm compared to the other parts of the temple we were viewing. And we actually had a grand experience in there, and I wanted to share it because it was very moving for me. And Andrew can go into what really happened in that temple.
You're referring to Karnak today, in the statue that we saw. So there's a very private part of the temple, and because we are on a special 5-star tour, Nile River tour, our guide Djedi has done an amazing job and has gotten a special time in each of their places so that we could be there as our group to go and experience. So as you go through the gate and you go into the place, all of a sudden there's this ancient statue of Sekhmet in her lioness form, and she just reaches right out at you. The statue is alive. The carving is so exquisite that no natural human hands could carve it out of that particular stone. And it has been there the whole time. It's one of the few statues that hasn't moved at all. And the energy that is coming off this Sekhmet statue is off the charts. Off the charts with people who've had previous experiences. An interesting story our guide Djedi shared with us today is last year the travel and tourism industry was virtually nothing. Since 2011 and the revolution, now they're having 19 million travelers return this year. It has finally turned its corner, and these statues are alive with people's energy. These temples are once again alive with people's energy, the visitations, the ancestral relations. And when I walked into this room, it just leaped forward like a lioness into my energy field, but as like a hug, an embrace, a loving feeling that reminded me of my connection to Karnak and the different frequencies that live in that temple. Beautiful energies, and each person is going to share their own unique experience with Sekhmet.
Wow.
Look how big it is.
Look at the stuff moving in front of it. Wow.
Now we're going to have a new phase. So Eleanor, we have shared some of our experiences, and the special thing about this Egypt tour is this boat that we're on. Right now, we're on the Nile River. You can hear the crickets in the background. We've had an incredible, powerful days. We started at Giza, and then we went to see the sunrise at the Sphinx. We went to the temple, went to the museum. And then to Luxor, we flew a first class to Luxor, and then got into this incredible, exquisite 5-star hotel. We've got Luxor, Karnak, Temple of Hatshepsut, the Valley of the Kings, and we saw some amazing shops. Now we're on our second night on the boat. And we're waiting to get into the lock that is just upstream that is going to take us further down to Aswan. So now, Eleanor, would you like to introduce the first person that would like to share their questions and experiences? We discover the galactic history of Egypt, sharing their unique experiences.
Okay, so we're going to start here with our dear friend and our mentorship student. He's been on many journeys with us. He's a big part of our new Universal Citizens Healing System. Mr. Chris Sinatra. Please, share a bit of your experience, your highlights, and your question you have for us today.
Hi everyone, this is Chris Anatra. I just first want to start off by saying that everything has been wonderful. The food, the accommodations, our tour guide Doa, who's incredible, her communication for our needs and talking to others and helping us get access has been just made all the difference in the world. Especially getting access to things like the Sphinx. That was really incredible. We went there early in the morning. Our group was able to be by itself, right under the paws of the Sphinx. We could walk all around the Sphinx. We could feel the energy of the Sphinx. Really, it was something that I think that we will all remember for the rest of our lives. How could we not? And having access and going to places at the Valley of the Kings, as was mentioned before, Sekhmet's temple was really, really amazing. The energies there were totally incredible. So in total, the experience has been absolutely outstanding. I give it my highest recommendation possible. And if you have a chance to do this tour, I would highly recommend that you give it some really serious thought. And really, everyone that's on the tour has been really amazing. The friendships that are being made, getting to know each other. Again, these are going to be friendships that are going to last a lifetime. And I'm just really excited with... I had no idea who was coming on the tour, and whatever tour you go on, there'll be equally amounts of people that are just incredible. The energies from people, how you learn from each other as well, and also all the different parts of the world that people have come from, and learning more about where they're from and their customs, etc. So all in all, something that I highly recommend. Now I have 3 questions. Would you like me to just limit my first one to 1?
No, because you are a mentorship student and are a frequent flyer question asker.
Okay.
You get frequent flyer question asking points.
All right, I'll take that.
Shoot.
All right. My first question has to do with something called Alexandria's genesis, which is a genetic mutation. People that have that genetic mutation have violet-colored eyes. A person in particular that was known for this was Elizabeth Taylor, and she even had a perfume, I think, called Violet Eyes. Well, there's a story that I've heard that's been told about an event that happened in ancient Egypt, in Alexandria. That's why it's called Alexandria's Genesis, where there was a flash in the sky, and the result was that people that were observing this flash, their eyes turned violet, their skin was pale, they had no body hair below the neck, and they were known to have a very long life. So my question is, 3 parts. Did this event actually take place?
Yes, multiple times. It's not just in Egypt. It is a human resonance flash designed to activate DNA, whether you're ready or not. Keep going with the question.
So that leads me to another question. Can you name other places where it took place besides Alexandria?
The Atlantean realm, 80, 65,000, 15,000, 9,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, 390 BC, 240 AD. It's cyclical, and it's triggered by a series of asteroids that have, let's just say, technology in them that are designed as they come closer and closer to the planet. They scan for high frequency beings, and they scan the DNA farm, the surface, not the subsurface. And as they're going closer and closer, those high beings will be sensitive to this comet or asteroid that's coming that has the technology built into it, and it'll build up photons and light, and it'll shoot them into the atmosphere, and then the human resonance will respond. And those that are already active in the DNA skin suit, those in sympathetic and parasympathetic full body control, and have full vagus nerve control, will be exposed to this flash like a bright camera flash, and it'll change the way they absorb light and emit light. And it changes their DNA by adding 20 to 30 to 60 strands, in some cases 200.
200 strands. So what would be an example of some abilities that these people would gain?
Instantaneous recall of all past lives within 70 generations.
Is it possible something like this could happen again?
Yeah, it is going to happen again. It's just right now, let's just say some scientific experiments known as CERN are preventing these, as well as the original technology pieces that were in the asteroids. Many of them have been removed, but it does naturally exist also.
That's interesting. You mentioned about CERN. Today's September 13th, I believe, and 2 days ago was the 10-year anniversary that CERN was powered up. I got an email word about that.
Well, it was first powered up in the early 80s, but they don't tell you that. And there's more than one CERN. There's 11 across the world.
Okay, very good. Okay, that answers that first question. Incredible answer, by the way.
You're welcome.
Wasn't expect that to come, but okay.
There's something else about the violet flash. You're familiar with the violet flame?
I've heard of the violet flame.
Okay. Do you know where the teachings come from?
No.
So, Thoth, ancient Egypt. So the violet flame was something that can be triggered by sound. And people could get the violet eyes for 10, 12, 15 hours. So imagine having 124 strand DNA for 15 hours. If you went through the sound ritual in the specific temples that we've already visited, because all of the Egyptian technology is sound reactive to your DNA.
Can you name the sound frequency?
It's not something you name, so it's something you can only experience, because the stones have a resonance to them. And when you match the resonance of the stone, it activates the technology in your DNA to take the density of what's in the stone and add the energy to yourself, which has tens of thousands of years of ancient history behind it. Other people are praying, other people are offering energy, plus the background energy of the planet that's constantly filling the stones with harmony, frequency.
Thank you for going deeper with that. Is there anything else you can go deeper with?
Oh yeah.
That you're ready to share?
Well, I mean, there's some negative things that it can be used for. So there are reptilians who, when exposed to the violet, can become really pretend good beings and have a form of charisma. And this is what a lot of politician people have been exposed to. It's part of a mind control thing, because it gives them extra strands of DNA to be very super charismatic over their constituents. Elvis was exposed to this energy. That's why he was so famous. The Beach Boys and a variety of the other singers in the 60s.
Who exposed them to it?
CIA. And then subsections within the CIA. You can't just say the common CIA, the deep operators.
So they have access to this technology to project it on.
So they can predict when it'll naturally occur in specific areas, and they'll babble over those areas. I like some interesting violet flame questions. Well, Chris, you want me to go further?
I would love you to go further.
I'm going to allow you to push the envelope. What is it that you'd like to know when it comes more, as you've heard part of my explanation, as it creates more patterns within you? What other frequencies would you like?
How often does this actually occur naturally?
Well, it depends on the Schumann resonance frequency. And if the Schumann resonance frequency spikes on the North Pole and the South Pole during a coronal mass ejection, that's at least in the extremely high solar flare class, the planet will begin to build up large amounts of photons. And those photons contain the 8th color of time. The violet flame is there to trigger our experiences as a short-term multi-strand DNA experience for us to experience what the higher realms are through the medium of our planet, through the dream world, so on and so forth. So it can occur in specific places that have volcanoes that are naturally producing their own aurora borealis because of the magnetic frequencies that are in there. It's mass spiking, or if you're able to find the right place on the North Pole or the South Pole where the streamers are so intense, you can build a magical antenna or a technological antenna that can draw these energies down, and then be imprinted into a beingness or isness, wasness, or wordness. So they don't physically need to be there. It's how they make mass manifestation of beings of 200 strand DNA in the past and rapidly advance them to the future without time travel. Direct photonic transference of consciousness. And that's where the violet is, because if you don't have that violet experience, you can't directly transfer your consciousness from planet to planet by bypassing the incarnation, reincarnation.
So how come some of these people that have experienced this, like Elvis and certain politicians, how come their eyes haven't actually turned violet? Is it just the activation?
Because they were only temporarily exposed to it. But the knowledge is still heavily retained, but it does fade away after a while, and it was a way to control them.
Is it more prone to happen in the North Pole or the South Pole?
It all depends on the level of the coronal solar flare, and the angle at which it hits, and the position of the planet, and where it comes off of the sun.
So that's why it worked in Alexandria near the equator first up.
And they were assisted by external technologies built into comets and meteorites that could build up photonic charge and shoot it at a particular area of the planet, even though it would never hit the planet.
Okay. What else can you add about the violet flame?
Lynn, you want to add, Eleanor?
Yes. The traditions here in Egypt have gone back far with the mystery schools, and there was obviously a lot of knowledge, a lot of practices here. But the violet flame, for me, has represented a kind of a collective, if you want to call it that, of quote-unquote ascended masters. I've worked with the violet flame, and it is a very real flame. When you work with it actively, it was intended to be IM technology. It is an IM technology technique, and there have been several ascended masters who have come. There's been Al Moira, there's been Saint Germain, there's been different people in history who brought awareness and practice of the violet flame. And it's one of those things that never died out in our history. It has remained a present practice, and there are actually, thousands and thousands of groups, as you would know, all over the world who work actively with the violet flame. It is something I would always recommend, as it is a very high frequency and a high frequency of love.
Also, it'd be worthwhile for those who have ever read Thoth's Emerald Tablets or experienced any of the other violet flame books that are out there, just to go and experience for yourself. There's a variety of things out there that have some really, really good teachings, but it's still about integrating it into your overall perspective and magical practice.
And just don't get caught in the dogma. There are a number of traditions. I don't like to name call, but let's take, for example, I don't know if any of you have ever heard the work of Elizabeth Clare Prophet. Elizabeth Clare Prophet. Now, Elizabeth Clare Prophet really brought a lot of awareness of the violet flame, but her teachings and dogmas, eventually she went off the rails a little bit and actually was, I would say, pretty much controlled by entities in the end.
Pretty much.
So if you're doing the violet flame practice, I would recommend you do it to raise your frequency,
Purify your environment.
Purify your environment, correct, for cleansing. But don't become attached. There's a lot of teachings, like how we have, all the different sects of religion that come off from, let's say, Christianity, etc.
You're not to barbecue roast entities or personalities with the violet flame. If you're doing that, you're doing it wrong. You're violating what the whole point of the violet flame is. The violet flame also literally exists in your spinal sheath. That's your cranial sacral pulse. And as you get deeper into the violet flame, it exists within the parasympathetic vagus nerve, which connects all aspects of the entire organs, bodies, everything. And it is there the violet flame can be drawn from its infinite source into the vagus nerve. When the sympathetic and parasympathetic are in letdown, you can share this violet flame energy with your left and right brain so that they have created brand new neural pathways between each other. And the violet flame is literally what creates out of nothingness brand new pathways that have superluminal capacity to them. Meaning you can bypass chemical memory making and directly be in the mystical experience.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to my next question.
Okay.
My next question has to do with Star Wars and Egypt. So there's something that I've heard of called the Djed of Egypt, maybe referred to as the Knights of Egypt. Some people even say that George Lucas, when he wrote Star Wars, had the Djed or the Jedi in mind. So my question is, did they actually exist?
Yes. Not in this Star Wars-y format, though. So earlier in our tour, we met
Gamal.
Gamal. So he is an example of an illuminated master. Now, one of my mentorship, I mentorship with in the business class, Satyan Raja, had a very, very close teacher here in Egypt that could be called a Djedi. Those are people that are classically trained in Egyptian antiquity, but were raised under the traditional Egyptian magical system that never died out.
Went underground.
It just went underground. And this particular gentleman, before he passed on a lot of wisdom, and he would be called a Djedi. And yes, it's fair to say that the Star Wars is based off of these types of teachers who were far more open in the 60s and the 70s to foreign students because they were so disgusted with what archaeology was attempting to do.
The same gentleman, he can be seen, and he did a really great series. He was featured in the Pyramid Code.
With Carmen Bolter.
Yes, I would highly recommend that everyone see the Pyramid Code. His name slips me in the moment.
It slips me in the moment.
But he's an older gentleman, and you will clearly recognize he was a living master, and he passed about 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
No, I think it was 2011. 9 years ago.
So what was their purpose? Why did the Djedi exist?
Pass on knowledge and legacy and stand up for truth. The truth of what our race amnesia is hiding from us. And that sound and light are one and the same, and anyone can access superluminal thinking. I'm not the first person that's talked about it. Thousands have talked about it. I'm just using a language that connects in today's colloquial now. So they are familiar in colloquial thens. The Djeds are the ones that can tell who our true time travelers are, and they also understand that these temples, when brought in the right base of knowledge, the hieroglyphs mean something completely different. There's a tonal value and a song to them that, like lyrics to a song, complete a circuit. So you can read what the texts are, but if you're just reading a song and it says, I love you, blah, 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 it really does, the lyrics don't make sense until the chorus and the rest of the music are present. And they're able to reread the colloquial then, meaning they knew the music of then behind the words, which brought intense amount more value to what's actually on the walls.
The other aspect and reason that orders like the Djed have existed in history is because of the nature of what has been going on with humanity. Always the knowledge, those who had the knowledge were often targeted as it is in this time today. So with many of these traditions, you would get, let's say, the outer teachings. You would get certain information, but however, all of the core information that were like keys to open up the inner teachings, which you get, were only ever given in oral tradition. They were forbidden to be written down, and they would be passed from generation or from the Djed to the initiate, from person to person, generation to generation. This is how they preserved the knowledge, and the knowledge was not then weaponized.
So in Star Wars, the Jedi had a negative counterpart known as the Sith. Did such a thing exist?
Let me give a better answer to this. It's not. So there are Djed that go down the path of instant gratification of wealth. Are they the dark side? No. Pure murderous, warmongering warlords are that. And the Djed had teachings that could, if they found a good king, a good leader, they could provide technological backup that could, let's say, make their campaign far more successful. The ability to remote view, where their army's positions and placements are, how to do certain tactics that were never seen before, as well as predict future actions or create negative omens for the other group's use of their magic and belief system. They could manipulate that. So were there truly a opposite dark version? You could call today's Illuminati that, but is it really the dark side like Star Wars promotes? No. But Star Wars is a good story, and people understand just the two polar opposites of light and dark.
Excellent. I'll move on to my third question. Okay. Third question has to do with a pharaoh named Ramses III, known as a warrior pharaoh. On our trip here, we visited his tomb in the Valley of the Kings. We saw his mummy at the Cairo Museum. We visited his site at Karnak today. There's been some mystery surrounding his death. It is said that he was poisoned by his harem, and that's how he died. How did he die exactly, and who was involved?
He died because there was a fuse in his DNA that said you will live to this exact moment in linear time, and all the skill sets and magic that are put in you will suddenly rapidly disappear. And he died because of that, because he made a magical contractual deal with some potent and powerful entities who guaranteed a very long life and long reign, but a very rapid death. Magic and entities.
So physically, though, how did he did this actually?
His life force simply just left him.
Okay, it wasn't a conspiracy in the harem and poison.
Well, no, they didn't know he made a deal with an entity.
Okay.
So to them, who did it? Who did it? And it's a whodunit that had no one who done it but himself.
So the blame was put onto them because there was no other solution. Okay.
No one else could figure out what went wrong. None of their magical practitioners, nothing, because they're dealing with some super high potent entities that kept him in office for a long, 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 long time. It made him one of the most successful kings out there.
Is this something that's common with pharaohs of Egypt?
Yes. Deal making, yes.
Deal making. Okay.
Yes. Haggling.
Haggling. We've dealt with a lot of hagglers.
Yes, we've dealt with a lot of haggling.
The best way to haggle is to walk away, as I've learned.
Yep.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are my 2 questions. Thank you.